and welcome to Look Who's Cooking. My name is Jeremy Edwards, and I have a special guest with us today.
My name is Amanda Williams, and I am the SGA president at Hartford Community College. We are looking for our next candidate, our president, vice president, secretary, even senators. So please run. If you have any information or questions, contact Caitlin at harvard.edu.
All right, now today, we're going to do a simple, budget-friendly meal that's also vegan. Today we're going to do a crispy jackfruit carnitas. Now the first step we're going to do is take our jackfruit, which you can find canned in most grocery stores at a fairly decent price. We're going to take 20-ounce can, open it, and drain it. When draining it, you can use cheesecloth or perhaps a paper towel, a kitchen towel perhaps, because you want something sturdy enough to where the product doesn't come out and you can squeeze the excess liquid. So we're going to go to the sink. Just drain the excess liquid off. And then next we're going to take our towel. We're going to open it up and just put our jackfruit in the middle of it, because at this point we need to wring it. Because this fruit contains a lot of water. If you can see how soft it is, so it's going to shred pretty easily. Well, we're just going to take our rag, go back to our sink, and kind of just wring it. If you can see the excess water that's coming out, you want to get rid of that because it's going to hinder your cooking process if you have all the excess water. We want to leave that here just so the towel soaks it up. So while that's drying and most of the water is coming out, we're going to prepare our onions and our jalapenos. Now you don't have to use jalapenos. You know, some people can't handle spice, but I like spice. And then as far as the onion is concerned, red onion tends to complement these type of dishes because the red onion tends to be a little spicier, but you can use white, you can use Vidalia, you can use pearl onions, whatever onions you have in your cabinet. Even if you just use onion powder, that's still sufficient enough. So let's remember, when we're using our knife, remember, hold it properly. And with our onion, since it's a round object, you want to kind of hold it in the middle and just split it right down the center. Remember, keeping the tip of the knife on the cutting board at all times and just going down slowly. You always want to have control of your knife because the last thing you want to do is cut your fingertips off.
True.
All right, we're not going to need the whole onion, about half I should say. And we're cutting the onion. What I like to do is, like I said, get your claw. The claw tends to keep your fingertips tucked and it keeps you having control. And I just keep the blade rested on my fingertips, or my knuckles I should say, and just slice across the tip. And what I do with that is I just peel off the skin. You don't want to have the skin because it doesn't cook the same.
Right.
And it tends to have a fibrous texture to it.
Doesn't really look presentable.
It does not look presentable. You know, you don't want to peel too much of your onion off because you don't want to waste your onion. Right. But just want to take off that crispy, crunchy onion skin. Now the technique for cutting onions, like I said, have your claw hand. You want to go on the opposite side where you see the lines of the onion and just slice. Not slicing through to the very end where the root of the onion is, but just far enough down.
Now, how do you do it so you don't cry?
Well, I've heard chewing gum works.
Right.
Wearing a mask, since we're in, you know, a pandemic, a mask tends to help too. It helps filter out the fumes from the onions.
That's a good point.
But it's going to be very hard to not cry from onions. You would have to kind of be used to it. But, you know, it's an inedible thing. Now, what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to dice it. So if you see how I sliced it on one end, I'm going to go on the opposite end and do the exact same thing. And you now have a nice diced red onion.
Nice.
This part, you can cut this down some more if you like, but you don't have to. We'll discard that. And we want to take our onion and put it in our bowl. And as you can see, when you break it up, it's a nice pretty dice. Let's go ahead and add the rest of
It
that.
has a strong smell, but I'm not frying yet. So.
Yeah, red onions aren't too bad. It's really the white onions you have to worry about. Because those, even though it does, to me, it doesn't have the same amount of flavor as a red onion. It's very potent. Now, the jalapeno. With the jalapeno, you have to be careful with this as well. Kind of want to recommend wearing gloves. I don't have them, but the oils from the pepper can get to your fingers. Now imagine wiping your face or eating something or even going to the restroom. That's going to be very painful, so please be careful. So this, you're just going to cut off the stem, and I want to split this in half. Now this recipe is asking for a half of a jalapeno, so we're going to save this, and you can always use this again later for something else. You're going to de-seed it, because most of the power and the heat are in the seeds and in the ribs, which you see that white part, that's the rib. You gotta be careful because that's where the heat is. And just imagine biting into a seed and that burst of spice hits you. It's not gonna be pleasant unless you could tolerate something like that.
So if you do want your food more spicy, you kind of do leave it alone, or you recommend cutting it?
I still recommend it just because the seeds, like I said, when biting into the seed, it's going to pop in your mouth, and you're going to get that extremely quick burst of spice, which can be uncomfortable depending on your tolerance. So what I like to do, just take your finger, you can actually pull it out, scrape out the seed, or you can run it under water and rinse the seeds out as well. So let's get rid of those seeds, and I'm gonna make sure I wash my hands properly because I don't want to eat my carnitas and my mouth catches on fire. Then I'm gonna leave some of the rib in just because it does add some flavor. And I'm gonna dice this the same way that I did my onion. I'm actually gonna cut all the way through into nice strips and do the same thing for my jalapeno. So I'm gonna try to dice it as small as I can.
Yeah, I'm gonna notice it's smaller than the onions just because you don't want to bite into a big piece.
You don't want to bite into a big piece of jalapeno. But now, I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna do with this once we finish dicing. I'm actually gonna dice a little bit more. And this is another thing you can do as well. Instead of holding it since you're having diced, you can place your hand on top of the knife and just rock. And then you can see that the jalapenos are getting smaller. Just kind of want to cut in various directions, always keeping a nice pile and scraping your knife just to make sure you don't have all your product on your knife. I can already smell the spice.
Yeah.
I think that's a sufficient amount of cutting. And then we're going to add this to our onions because now we're going to take this to our stove top and start the sauteing process as soon as I get this into the bowl.
Now, do you prefer pouring your oil in the saute, in the onion and pepper, or in the pan first?
So you can do both, but I would recommend heating your oil first because you don't want cold product to go in because it's not going to have the same cooking effect.
Got it.
When everything is hot at the right temperature, you'll get a nice good sear, a good saute, a good crisp. So now with this, I have about 3 tablespoons of just regular all-purpose or vegetable oil. We're going to use half of it just to start our sauteing process. So now we're going to take this to our stove where I have a nice preheated pan and we're going to get started. Okay. Now, at this point, since we have our onions and our jalapenos cut, we're going to now start the saute process. So if you want to, if you can grab the oil, we're going to put the oil in just half of that, which is basically 1 tablespoon. We're going to put that into our pan.
Let me know when to stop.
That's good. Yeah. Stop the smoke, but that's fine. So at this point, we want to get a nice good caramelization to our product. So if we want to go ahead and throw our onions.
Put all of it in there?
Every last bit. There you go. Now,
I can hear that.
yeah, you hear the sizzle, right? I'm gonna just be careful, might flame up a little bit. There you go. So yeah, so at this point we want to stir. Got a lot of noise. At this point we want to stir because we want to get a good caramelization on our product.
That smells so good.
So at some point, you're going to see our onions start to turn a nice golden brown. You want to wait till all your onions are a good golden brown color. That's when you know that it's at the good, proper texture and temperature, I should say, of cooking. Because at that point, we're going to add some other items once our stuff is finished. Oh, I forgot. We need to add garlic as well.
I was going to ask you, because I was like, don't you do the garlic and the onions at the same time?
Yes.
Now, am I pouring the whole thing in or half?
Whole thing.
Okay.
And this is going to be 4 cloves of garlic. If you don't have fresh garlic, you can always use pre-cut garlic. You can find the little jars or tubes of garlic in the grocery store.
Is garlic powder okay?
Garlic powder is fine too.
There you go.
Fresh garlic, you can never go wrong with a fresh product. But if you don't have a fresh product, you can use whatever substitutions you have in your cabinet. So if you don't have garlic, you use garlic powder. If you don't have onions, you can use onion powder. If you don't have jalapenos, you can use cayenne, you can use a Tabasco, whatever spice that you have.
Crushed peppers.
Yeah, crushed peppers, definitely, that will really make it spicy.
Yeah.
But when you do that, you still want to saute it in your oil. So, say for instance, you're using a substitution as opposed to fresh product. You want to still saute it in your oil, but do it on a lower temperature because you don't want to burn it.
Now, why do we saute it like all of them?
Because what you're going to do, you're trying to sweat all the product in your pan. So this releases all oils, all the flavors and everything into your pan.
Got it.
Because at this point, when you add your jackfruit and your other spices, all those flavors are going to encompass and incorporate into each other. It's going to make a delicious meal.
It smells so good. The garlic and the onions.
Yeah.
Man, it smells really good.
Now with garlic, you have to be careful because garlic burns easy.
Yeah, I noticed that the pot is kind of getting like sticky on the bottom.
So that's what you want because when you add your jackfruit, there's still going to be some residual water left.
Okay.
And that water is going to loosen up everything on the bottom and add flavor to all your food.
That makes sense.
Okay, so now we have this sauteed. Let's give it a 30 seconds or so.
Sure.
Okay. Now, once this is done, we're going to add 2 more ingredients. I think we're good. Now, we can go ahead and add our jackfruit. So with the jackfruit, what I'm going to do is, since we have it already dried out, I'm just going to give it a rough chop.
Man, it looks so different. I've never seen jackfruit before. And this was canned jackfruit.
Yes, yes.
Now, where could you purchase this?
Many grocery stores have it. Sometimes you may have to find it in the international section.
Yeah.
Or any specialty grocery stores where you know you can find a different product that other grocery stores may or may not have. I don't want to name names, but you can kind of figure out what grocery stores kind of are on the higher end, and you can more than likely find jackfruit like this. So
it looks like shredded chicken, honestly.
it does. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna pick up the whole cutting board and drop it right in my pan. And if you want to, grab the soy sauce that's right there.
Oh, we adding soy sauce.
And we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of soy sauce.
All right, let me know when to stop.
Drop everything in there. There we go.
Now, why did you add soy sauce?
Soy sauce not only, if you can see, is going to add color.
It did change the color. It made it darker.
It's going to add color, and the soy sauce already has it's very full body and flavorful. It's going to add not only salt to it, because soy sauce is salty.
It is.
It's going to add the other flavors that's going on with it as well. And then the soy sauce, if you can see, kind of loosens up everything on the bottom of the pan.
Yeah.
And that's now going to be encompassed into the jackfruit.
It's funny, I thought jackfruit actually had a smell, but I really don't smell anything. That's so weird.
Yeah, so jackfruit, normally when it's growing fresh, it tends to have a oniony, a pungent onion flavor. You know, it's native to India, and it has moved across to the Philippines.
Got it.
But it has become a staple in their cuisine, and you know, Western culture, we like to always, you know, look at different recipes and different ways of eating healthy.
Yeah.
You can use jackfruit in other ways as well. I've done a jackfruit crab cake. Which is vegan friendly. You just season it well.
And I can see that because it does kind of look like lumps of like crab. It really do look like shredded chicken or like chicken breast. Like if you cut chicken breast up or if you shred it up. And I can see how people can use this like as a pulled pork or something like that because it has that shreddiness to it. That's so cool.
And this is amazing as a pulled pork substitute. So if you love barbecue, but you're trying to stay away from pork, or even meat in general, you can still shred this and cook this in the same manner that you would a pulled barbecue, I should say. You can season it any way you want. And jackfruit is going to take whatever flavor that you put on it. Yeah. So if you want to make it spicy, savory, sweet, southern, Asian, Middle Eastern, the world, you can do whatever you want.
Now, some fun facts about jackfruit is it's also known as a jack tree, and it's in the family of a breadfruit family. So there you go. And it is grown in India, which is pretty cool. So that's very interesting. It's a huge plant.
Yes, it's huge. Now, at this point, we want to let this cook for 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how hot your pan is, because you want to cook out the majority of the water out of the jackfruit, because we want to get it as dry as possible. And then once you do that, you're going to start smelling it. It's going to become fragrant just from the vegetables and the jackfruit alone. Now, I think we're at a good point where we can add our spices. Now, our spices, we have various spices that we have. We have paprika, which is 1 tablespoon, chili powder, which is 1 tablespoon, cumin, which is 1 tablespoon, oregano, which is 1 tablespoon, salt and sugar, which is 1 tablespoon. And we're just going to throw everything into the pan. So if you want to grab something.
Sure. Now, you were saying if you don't have these individual spices, is there a substitute that you can use?
Yes. So basically what we're throwing in is the base of a simple taco seasoning. So if you have taco seasoning, fajita seasoning, a Mexican spice, anything that's resemblance of that will be sufficient enough.
Okay.
Then we're going to add our remaining oil, because at this point we have to fry everything. So all our spices, our jackfruit, our vegetables, everything.
It smells and looks amazing.
Yes. So this is what you call a jackfruit carnitas, which is, spiced in a traditional Latin way. They would use for beef or pork or things like that. So you can use this for tacos, fajitas, burritos, quesadillas, or you can throw this on a salad. You can even just put this between 2 pieces of bread and half sandwich. Whatever your preference is. But today, we're going to try tacos. So we're just going to do this for about another 2 to 3 minutes. Always continue to stir, because you remember, you don't want your stuff to burn on the bottom of your pan. And we don't want things to stick just because, okay, we're making this. And plus, when it comes to cleaning process, you don't want to sit here and keep scrubbing all day just because you forgot to keep stirring.
Now, can you eat a jackfruit raw? Is that something that's possible, or it has to be cooked? Like, can you?
Well, it is a fruit, so but
that's true.
For transportation purposes, they can it just because it's coming from all the way from Asia and the Philippines and things like that. It won't last, so they can it just because it won't perish and you can still use it. Now, of course, fresh jackfruit will be optimal, but unfortunately in America, we don't have the luxuries of having a lot of those tropical fruits available.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it some couple more stirs. It is kind of sticking to the pan a bit.
Yeah. So I'll say about another 30 more seconds. I think we'll be done, and at that point, we can start plating.
This smells amazing.
Okay. Okay. All right. Come on. You ready? Okay. Now, since we've done everything that we were supposed to for this recipe, we finally have our finished project. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to make some tacos. So I have some flour tortillas. You can use corn. You can use hard shell tacos. You can even make a dip and just have some regular tortilla chips and make a dip or something like that.
Scoop it up with a chip or something.
Exactly. So we have some nice flour tortillas, and I'm just going to garnish it with some fresh cilantro. So I'm going to take the cilantro, and you really want the cilantro just the leaves. Also, another fun fact, which I honestly just found out recently, that cilantro is it's basically the plant or the leaves of the coriander seed. Now, I know you've seen coriander in the grocery store. So the seed itself is actually what this is. It's a cilantro. So in other countries, they'll call cilantro coriander.
Right.
Yeah. Because I have
Interchangeable.
I met some individuals that are from Jamaica and they will call cilantro coriander. And I was like, I thought coriander was different. Like, no, it's not.
That's so cool.
So right now, we're going to take this, we're going to get our knife and just give it a nice rough chop. It doesn't have to be fine, it doesn't have to be minced, just small enough where you're not eating an entire leaf.
Right.
And you want to sprinkle this on top of your taco.
Give it some color.
Exactly. Also, a nice lime. Now with this, you want to taste it first because jackfruit tends to be a little more tangy than most. So depending on your level of tanginess, you can leave it as is, or you can just garnish it or drizzle some fresh lime on top.
Now, I've never had jackfruit before, so this is my first time having it. I'm kind of excited, at the same time, kind of nervous.
Yeah, so we're gonna just cut just 2 wedges, if you would like to have that.
Alright.
And we're gonna take our tortilla, nice trusty tongs, put a nice generous portion of jackfruit in the middle. Then we're gonna take some cilantro, just a tad. I like cilantro. I love the flavor of it. It brightens it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then your lime. Just a nice little couple drops of lime. Put that on the side just in case you want some more. And here we have a nice finished product. Jackfruit Carnitas.
There you go.
Nice vegan, budget-friendly option for those that enjoy it. Now I want to thank you for joining us for Look Who's Cooking. I want to thank our guest. And we're going to see you next time.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Do you try it?
Say bite. Let's say bite.